So when you think about a poop hit the fan situation, and you think about it hitting, and it's going to be a big one. We're not talking about a small thing. We're not talking about hurricanes or tornadoes where there's, or maybe the electric, the grid goes down for a day or two or whatever, or your power goes out. Not the grid, but the power goes out for a couple of days. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about the big one, right? When you think about that, do you have some plans in place? Because when that happens, that's going to change everything, right? That's going to change the whole way that we look at that. So when we look at food storage, and I've talked to a lot of people about their food, that they have a month supply of food, maybe they have 3 months supply. There's very few people that I have talked to that have like a year supply or more, right? That's very few people. But you think about it, what happens if you're in that long-term scenario situation? What kinds of plans need to be put in place? Because there's going to be so much shock, there's going to be so much confusion, there's going to be so much normalcy bias. It's like, oh my gosh, this cannot be happening. Even there's going to be a lot of preppers who prep, and it's like, no, I know that I've been reading about this for a while. I know that I've read the books, I know that I've read articles, I've listened to podcasts and watched videos and all this type of stuff, and I know that it was very possible, but here it is, and oh my gosh, right? Maybe I'm not prepared for it. So my thing is this: what is your plan B for food? Because if we're in a long-term situation where you have, where the trucks aren't going anymore, they're not driving anymore, and your grocery stores are out just like that, and there's no more food. What are you going to be doing? So the idea I think everybody has is they're going to start they're going to start growing or gardening, right? Their own. And so there's a couple of things to think about. And really, this is coming off of episode 385. I talked about this last week, and I've just been mulling this over and bouncing this off. Just my thinking, reflecting, and all that kind of stuff. So people are going to be gardening, right? The thing is that you have to start doing that right away. Hopefully it is a season of the year where you can be doing, hopefully you're already doing that. You should be doing that, because I'll tell you what, gardening, starting to garden, starting to think about growing your own food is not when the poop hits the fan. There are so many things that go into it. You need to have soil. You need to be building up your soil. You need to be building up your nutrients. You need to be experimenting with it. You need to know what grows really well. You need to know all these things. So, trying to have a set of seeds and say, okay, when the poop hits the fan, boy, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to go ahead and grow my own groceries. Then you're going to fail miserably on that. So, the idea is that we're going to grow our own grow our own garden, vegetables and fruits and all those types of things. So hopefully we're in a situation where when the poop hits the fan, we're doing that on a regular basis, right? And we need to be doing that, and we need to have a good idea of how much is coming in and what it can, how it can sustain us, right? Because here's the deal: the long-term food storage that you have needs to be able to be there. You're not just going to be eating off of it. I think a lot of people, when they think about the long-term, situations, the poop hit the fan situations, the end of the world as we know it type things, it's like, I've got this amount of food, right? So the idea is you have that there in case of an emergency. What you really need to be doing is growing your own food. You need to be, raising those chickens and raising those rabbits and gardening and those types of things. And that needs to be it already needs to be in place. So here's the thing: is like, you have your long-term food storage, and if you're in if the poop hits the fan in a time when you can't garden, then it should hold you over until that time, but you should still have some more. And I'm going to talk about that just in a minute. So it should take you through that time to where you can start gardening, and then you need to really garden. I mean, like, you need to garden like you've never gardened before, right? So that you have enough fruits and vegetables to either trade or to be able to can and all that good stuff. But what happens if, for whatever reason, your garden fails? What happens if you plan on, this is your big plan, right? You're like, I'm gonna garden, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna grow fruits and vegetables, and we're gonna live off the land. And then for whatever reason your crops fail, what are you gonna do then? What is your plan B at that point? At that point, you should have long-term food storage. And that's why you need to have food to get you by until you get into a mode where you can start gardening and you can start, doing that kind of stuff. But then you need to have some long-term food storage in place in case your garden fails. And maybe not the first year, maybe the second or third year, maybe it fails then, but you need to have something behind, because if all you have is your garden and that's it, you need to be able to rely on something else. And we're self-reliant people. We are preparedness minded. We need to be thinking a little bit further out, plan B. So we've got canned goods, and we do our own food buckets. And food bucket rice and beans, those suckers can last, if you do it right, those suckers can last for years and years and years. And so that is something that's so cheap. And people always talk about, you don't want to have the same stuff. You're going to get really, really tired of eating the same stuff. And I completely agree with that. You should have a variety of stuff. You should buy a variety of stuff. But if you're in a situation where your garden fails and there is nothing else, man, you want to rely on some rice and beans. And that's cheap. It's cheap to make buckets of rice and beans and pasta and that type of stuff that will last for a long, long time. It's good. It's hard to do this, but it would be good to have like wheat berries. And to be honest with you, I haven't heard of wheat berries in a long, long time. I haven't seen an article on wheat berries in a long time, but those suckers will last a long, long time. And so you can get those and you can bring them out, you can cook with them. You can, you can grind them up and you can make bread and flour and all that kind of stuff. But those things will last for a very, very long time. So the idea here and the thought here is, when the poop hits the fan, what are you going to be able to rely on if your garden fails, if you're not able to get it up like you think you're going to get it up? Man, there's a lot of people that, and you know what? It's probably not as popular as it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. Those seed vaults. I know the people sold a lot of those, and people bought a lot of those, and I bet you there's a lot of people that have seed vaults in their closet somewhere, right? And the idea was, if the poop hit the fan, I'm going to start gardening. But man, there's going to be a lot of failure there. And so you really need to have a plan B. You really need to have a plan B and a plan C, and to be there. And I'm telling you, people are not prepared for that. People are not prepared. They have a month's worth of food storage, maybe 3 months worth of food storage. But again, like if the poop hit the fan here in Houston, and it was in December, man, I still got January and February really to go. Now sometimes it gets a little warm in February, but I have to have a plan, and I could build some hoop houses. I could, do something like that along those lines to maybe to help. But I need to be able to have something if things fail, for my family, so that we can sustain ourselves, because the trucks aren't coming, right? So I want to leave you with one last thing when I'm talking about this, because it's something that I haven't heard only once, right? Because we always talk about, when we talk about seeds and gardening, we always talk about heirloom seeds. And definitely that is a very important, because you want to have, when you have an heirloom seed, you're able to, if you save your seeds from year to year, you're going to have the same variety every year. It's the same from that same line. But I read something years ago, and I thought it was pretty wise. When you buy hybrid seeds, there's usually like a one-time use. You're going to get, they are bred, they're made to be able to have a big, to produce a big yield, right? And so if you were ever in a situation where, I'm not sure if my garden's going to take off, or I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough food, you could use those hybrid seeds to be able to have, and give your garden maybe an extra boost of, hey, I know these are going to have, they're genetically modified, right, to produce more. And so that would be very beneficial in this season because I don't have as much food as I would like to have. And so that's a thought to put back some hybrid seed, and you can kind of use that. You can still save hybrid seed, but you don't know what you're going to get. If you were to save hybrid seed and you put it back into the ground, you don't know what kind of, you might have a Franken vegetable or something, right? Frankenstein vegetable. You don't know what you're going to get when you do that. You could get the best part of the hybrid seed. You can get the worst part of the hybrid seed. You really don't know. But I just thought it was wise, and I've never heard anybody else talk about that. But again, you do want your heirloom seeds. Those need to be, those need to be part of your garden for sure, because you want to be able to sustain that for the very, very long term. So guys, I hope you think about your plan B, because if the poop hits the fan and it really hits the fan, what are we going to do, right? What do we have in place? Of course, we'll turn up our yards. We will do everything we can to grow food as much as possible. But if things happen, right, for whatever reason, things happen, we need to have a backup so that we can feed ourselves. So I hope this has been a blessing for you as we talk about having a plan B. And you should have plan Bs for not only your food, but for other things as well. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. God bless.